Hey gentlemen, welcome to my RV. I have these new fancy dancy lights. I have set up a little bit of an YouTube studio here in my RV so I can make videos for YouTube and for you guys. And in this video, I want to talk about my journal notes from this morning. I want to kind of open the kimono, which is a disturbing kind of thought, but I wanted to kind of pull the curtain back, maybe better, on my journal and share with you some of my thoughts and some of my journey with you. I think a lot of times guys in the community may think that coaches have it all figured out, that we have all the answers, and I'm here to tell you that we don't have any answers. We don't have your answers for sure. We have a lot of questions. We hear things, we reflect things back to you, we say your words back to you. We ask questions about what we're experiencing, talking to you. We ask questions for clarity so that you can hear yourself. And that's what a good coach does. A good coach gives you the opportunity to challenge your thoughts, to see your blind spots, to hear yourself maybe for the first time, to introduce new insights, to share insights from working with other guys, to share our own personal insights, our own personal journey, so that you can process all of that and go off and come up with your own answers about how you want to live your life, because it is your life and nobody else can live it but you. I can't live it. None of the coaches in the community can live it. Your wife can't live it. Your kids, your friends, your family, nobody but you. And nobody can live my life but me. And one of the interesting things about this journey is that we have all of these competing thoughts in our head, the competing beliefs in our head. And in that competition is a lot of noise, right? We like to think of ourselves as a static being. We look in the mirror and we see ourselves and we say, there I am. But we're constantly changing. We're constantly evolving. We are literally being renewed. Cells are dying and cells are being created, and this is what keeps us as a fluid form, a fluid figure, a fluid being that ages over time, right? And doesn't just solidify like some sort of concrete, like some sort of like Medusa looks at you and you're just, you're just kind of concrete. This is how we are fluid. But we have all these competing thoughts and stuff in our head, and when they're bouncing around in our head, it can be very confusing. We can have, and I'm going to use the word again, just to competing thoughts. We can have a yes and, right? We can have a thought we can have one belief that is completely contrary and opposite to another belief, and we hold both of those beliefs in our mind, right? And sometimes we have ideas about who we think we are and who we think we want to be and who we think we should be. And then we wind up doing things that are contrary to that. And then we're confused as to why we get the results that we get, right? And we have to remember that our thoughts drive our feelings, which drive our behaviors, which then drive our results. So if we don't like the results that we're having, we don't like the experience that we're having from our results, then we had to track it all the way back to our beliefs, back to our thoughts. And a lot of times what we want to do is we want to surface the competing thoughts so that we can get clarity. Because once we have clarity, once we have those thoughts are surfaced, we can at least then challenge them. We can at least say, is that true? And what do I think about that? And what would be the opposite of that? And what, we can just start to kind of pick it apart and then decide consciously what we want to live, what decisions, what choices we want to make, what we value, what's important to us, so that we can make choices to support where we want to go and what we want to experience and how we want to live and who we want to be. So I want to share my journal with you. I'm just right up front going to say there's going to be times when you're going to run up ahead in the story and go, oh, Charlie wants this. Oh, Charlie wants that. And I'm going to caution you against that, because even as I am writing these journal thoughts out and getting and surfacing these things and then questioning them and then and then seeing what's on the other side. Even I can't run ahead on these things. So the twists and turns are surprising even to me. Okay. So here it is. So I mentioned this on last night's Monday night call that I was feeling a little off yesterday. And I think I know what the problem was for the most part. And that is that I stayed up to about 12:30 and then got up at 5 o'clock. So I only got about 4.5 hours of sleep yesterday. And that threw me off a little bit. But more importantly, I think what really kind of threw me off was that I stayed up till 12:30. That I knew that that wasn't self-care. I knew that I was going to get up at 5 so that I could read and have coffee and journal and do all the things that are important to me. But I still allowed myself to stay up to 12:30, and I was kind of annoyed with myself because that's not caring for myself. It's not making sure that I have the best day the next day, and just like all of the other competing thoughts that I can have, that we can have in our head, we want to get clarity on those things, but we also want to act in alignment with our values. We want to support ourselves and care for ourselves and do the things that we know that we need to do in order to get the results that we want. And that wasn't what I did. So I was annoyed with that, and I was working real hard not to blame anyone else, just to own that for myself, not to, because my wife was up as well, and my family was up as well, and but it's real easy to transfer that onto other people and say, oh, well, we stayed up late, but when you really get down to it, I stayed up late, right? I have to own that for me, because I at any point could have said, okay, going to bed, and I didn't. So I was feeling a little off yesterday, and I think that sometimes what happens is, how you something kind of resonates. So more than just the staying up, it was also kind of a little, what I think maybe the English call a niggle, where we have like a little something in your brain that's just kind of like eating at you. And I think that the other part of that was just clarity on other areas of my life, right? Other places in my life where I haven't quite refined it. I haven't quite smoothed that out yet and got it to where I want it to be. And so I started journaling about this stuff. And so here's what I wrote. Something's bothering me, but I'm not clear what. Am I worried about money? Am I worried about the upcoming road trip? Am I worried about making videos? Am I stuck in neutral? Is it a combination of all of the above? Right? These are the things that I just kind of brain dumped what it was that I thought was bothering me as a starter for the conversation, just to see where things would go. And then I wrote, brain dump everything, and then organize, prioritize, and own it. So that's essentially what any advice that I would give a man. Go ahead and brain dump everything that's bothering you, everything that you can think of, and then organize it. Put it into some sort of organized fashion. Which parts can you address and get rid of, and which parts need more attention? Prioritize those things, and then own those things for you, right? Don't transfer them to somebody else. Don't blame them on somebody else. Like, own it and deal with it. So then I had a side thought, right? So I just told myself to brain dump and to organize, and then I had this little side thought, this little whisper, and so I said, "Oh, let me go ahead and write that down," right? So I said, side thought. Remember when you were in Rio? There was a work trip prior to coaching, prior to the community to men's work, where I went to Rio de Janeiro. I think just before the last Olympics, or the Olympics before last. And anyway, it was a time when there were a lot of machine guns on every street corner, but you could pretty much walk around pretty safely in the more touristy area of things. And I managed to score a hotel about 2 blocks off of the ocean, and the beaches there are like white sand beaches. It's beautiful water, and the vibe is just like phenomenal, right? It's Rio. Okay, so remember when you were in Rio and you walked the beach with nothing but a hotel towel, a swim trunks, and a room key, and your ID on you? Remember how free that felt? Barefoot on foreign soil. You wanted to live there for 6 months, working online and playing in the ocean every day. Where is that Charlie? what am I afraid of? What do I really want? So, and I ask this question, what do I really want? Because there's a story inside my head that says, I want to go live in a foreign country for an extended period of time. I want to live this life of freedom and fun and adventure and curiosity and exploration and all of that, right? And then meanwhile, I have a 2-story house in Austin with a little dog and a family and a yard and this RV. But it's not, those two things seem to contradict each other, right? I'm holding those two thoughts in my brain, this thought of going and being this world traveling adventurer, and this husband, father, dog owner, that has a mortgage and taxes and all of that stuff, right? Who puts Christmas lights up on the house, and so those two thoughts quite commonly conflict with each other. However, I'm here in the RV in Austin making this video. I'm not on the white sand beaches of Rio. So which is it, right? When we hold these competing thoughts in our mind, we create suffering for ourselves. So we either need to reconcile those in some way and bring them together, or we need to choose one or the other, because otherwise, if we tell ourselves we should be doing something and then we're not doing it, then we're creating this suffering by beating the crap out of ourselves. So I went on and I said, I've worked so hard to save my marriage. Am I saving me? Where am I? Am I afraid to upset my family? Am I afraid to upset my wife, my son, my daughter? Am I afraid to upset me? So it seems like an odd question. Am I afraid to upset myself? Am I afraid to upset myself? Am I keeping the peace with myself by not being myself? Or is myself someone else that I haven't really fully accepted or embraced? So, am I doing what I think I need to do to make others happy, to not upset others? Or am I really living how I want to live? How do I want to live? Why do I want to live that way? Right? These are questions. These are self-coaching questions that you can ask yourself, right? You can make statements in your journal, and then you can ask yourself questions. It's okay. You can do that. I love the phrase, I give myself permission to even consider the possibility of, and then fill in the blank. Because if we tell ourselves no, we limit ourselves, we hold ourselves back, we tell ourselves we can't even consider the possibility of something, then we have a real hard time processing, moving forward, moving through, moving past whatever it is that's holding us back. And so we have to be able to ask these questions. I mean, even in the Bible, there is a place where it says, be prepared to give an answer for what you believe, which by its nature means that you have to question what you believe in order to be able to give an answer for what you believe. So we have to be able to ask ourselves, even to challenge our beliefs, right? Am I living the way I want to live? And how do I want to live, right? Am I living the way I want to live? That sounds like a very assumptive kind of question, right? Like, oh, I want to live a certain way. Okay, well, what is that, right? What does that look like? And why? Why do I want to live that way? Because on the other side, right, our thoughts drive our feelings, drive our actions, drive our results drive our influence, we experience our results. So why do I want to live that way? Because just figuring out how I want to live is going to produce a result, and I have to know why I want to live that way, because if I get a result that I don't want, then I have to know, like, am I prepared to have that result? Is that going to match up to what it is that I want? And ultimately, I need to know what it is that I want, right? Not just, I want to know the thing behind the thing. And so that produced an answer. We don't always have an answer in the moment that we ask these questions, and it's okay to ask these questions without having an answer. But sometimes it does produce clarity, right? Like in the moment. So I said, I want to live simply. I want to earn more than I spend. I want to be debt-free. I want to own only what I need to support my life. I want to go slow and enjoy each moment. I want to travel. I want to see things. I want to meet people. I want to have experiences. I want to eat delicious food. I want to laugh. I want to play. I want to hike and walk. I want to rest, and I want to photograph it all. I mean, that's pretty specific. Those are pretty clear. And I said, I want my woman to want the same thing. When I wrote that, so everything else that I wrote felt like, yeah, that's true. It's true no matter where I am, whether I'm a world traveler or whether I'm here in Austin with a 2-story house and a little fuzzy dog and a mortgage, right? And but when I wrote, I want my woman to want the same thing, I said, that feels weird. That one feels something. There's something to that one, right? There's a disruption in the force on that one. And I said, I literally wrote, do I want a my woman? Do I want a woman at all? Do I want to be responsible for anyone else? Now, you have to know that I got married when I was 19 years old. I got divorced when I was 23, and then I was married by the time I was 24. And I've been married for 27 years this year. Now, only recently have I discovered that, I was hell-bent on getting married and proving that I could do it better than my parents. I was never not thinking about being in a relationship. In fact, I was, even as a teenager or young adult, I was thinking about being in a relationship. Obviously, I got married at 19. And so the question of, do I want to be in a relationship? Do I want to have another person in my life is a new question. It's new, and it's not something that I've considered a lot in the past. And so being able to allow myself to have that question is important, because it deserves a solid answer. And so I wrote that down. Do I want to consider anyone else in my plans? Right? This is that moment where we don't just, we're trying to get clarity of self, but we're also in relationship with another person. And so we need to be clear about what it is that we're prepared to offer the other person, who we want to be in that relationship, right? What we want to give, what we want to be responsible for in that relationship. And that drives, how we're going to show up and who we're going to be, and the decisions and choices that we're going to make. So, do I want to consider anyone else in my plans, was the question that I asked myself. And then I said, or do I want someone who fits themselves into my plans? Meaning I don't want to have to factor this other person into my plans. I want to make plans, and then I want that other person to be excited about being with me and be excited about those plans enough to figure out how to fit themselves into that, right? And that led to, if so, what are my plans? So again, do I want someone to fit themselves into my plans? ? If so, what are my plans? Right? There's this point where these little bits start to surface in our thinking, in our questioning, in our expression. Right? What are my plans? What are my plans? Right? If I'm so eager to have someone fit into my plans, well, I have to have plans, don't I? So what are my plans? I don't know, right? There's a point where we get to start asking ourselves these questions, and then we go, oh, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what those plans are, right? I should probably get some plans. So then I started writing. This is the next thing that came up. So what are my plans, right? What are my plans? And I said, oh, I have a buttload of money, more than I can spend, and I do what I want when I want. That feels pretty good, right? That feels pretty good. And I get it. I understand. Most of us would probably say that, right? We would, if you ask somebody what they want in life, they might say, I want a winning lottery ticket, and I want to sit on the beach and sip those little umbrella drinks, and yeah, I mean, why not? But I wrote that down, right? I want a buttload of money. And I want to do whatever I want whenever I want. Okay. Again, right? Okay. Accept yourself. Accept where you are in this moment with the thoughts that you have bouncing around in your head, even if they're competing with each other. Let's just go ahead and accept them, because once we accept them, right, we acknowledge them, we point to them, then we can start having a conversation about them. But it's not until we acknowledge them that we can even process them, even deal with them. So if we're saying, no, I can't think about that, I can't think that way, I can't say that, then it's going to be really hard for us to work those things through to get the clarity that we need. So I give myself permission to even consider the possibility of fill in the blank. So I went on to say, I no longer struggle with money. I deserve money. Money comes to me effortlessly. Money loves me. I am someone who has money all the time in large quantities. Okay, this isn't something that I typically would have written years ago. I grew up in a single wide trailer with shag carpet and wood paneling and chain smoking parents. They spent all their money on alcohol and cigarettes. And when it came time for me to go to college, I was a straight A student. I was the top of my class, and I wound up joining the Marines so that I would have money to go to college so I could put myself through college, because I knew that's what I wanted to do. Now, that's not a victim story. That's not a sad sack story. I'm not blaming them. It's the facts. And when it comes down to how our money was managed, how our money was spent, it seemed like we always had old cars. We had never had enough. Money was always tight. My mother was always writing checks and having them, held until payday, long before payday loan cashing check places existed. There was just a lot of scarcity and a lot of suffering, pain and suffering around money. And so that has been part of my story as well. And so I have been doing my work in that area, because as I say many times, the romantic relationship is just the canary in the coal mine, right? That's just the thing that gets the man. It's painful enough to wake him up, to get him to go looking for answers, to try to find a solution. And then he discovers that this is really a story about him and his journey of self-discovery back to himself, and that it touches every area of his life, including money, including sex, including a scarcity thought, in an amount of time that we have, and the amount of affection, the amount of love, the amount of everything, right? So money has always been a struggle. And as a side note, be ready for a little more pulling back of the curtain of Charlie. In the finance course, the money course that is on Mentoring Man, I plan to pull the curtain back on that and say, okay, this is what's going on. This is where I am, and invite you and the other men in the community to do the same thing, so that we can begin to work toward our goals rather than living quietly in shame and fear and scarcity. So be ready for that. All right, back to the journal. So I even said I'm paid big money to help men thrive. Now this is me getting more clarity on what I do as a men's coach, right? Just refining that, distilling it down, getting as clear and concise as possible. I give men more in use value than they pay in cash value. Now this comes from Wallace D. Wattles, the Science of Getting Rich, where he talks about giving a service, providing a service for someone, and that service having way more value than the money that's actually paid for that service. And that is where our riches lie. That is where our success and our wealth lies, in that we're providing that value, that volume of value, and in that is a service to the man, service to myself, and everybody wins. So I also wrote, my services are worth big money. I'm paid big money, right? So I said big money 3 times in that journal entry, because big money, right, isn't something that has been a phrase that I would have thrown around over the first half of my life. I worked in tech. I made good money, but it wasn't until right before my relationship imploded that I was making the most money that I had ever made for myself. And even then, I would argue that wasn't big money, not in the world of tech, where there is a lot of big money. I was still making good money, but I don't know that I would label it as big money. So I am writing here, right, a vision of I am someone who makes big money. And big money, like I said, let me just scroll back up here, right? Big money comes to me effortlessly. Big money loves me. Big money, I am someone who has big money all the time in large quantities, right? So there's a visualization there of seeing myself in that way. And because, again, remember, thoughts, feelings, actions, results equals the experiences that we have in life, right? So we got to track it back to our thoughts. And then I wrote down that money equals. Now I do this quite often, just use words to say this equals that equals something else, right? Because it's always a thing behind the thing behind the thing. So I generally will do that just to kind of shortcut the mental process, so that I don't have a whole lot of words in there. And so I said money equals shame. Shame equals not enough. Not enough equals scarcity. Scarcity equals fear. Fear equals not okay. Not okay equals protection, right? The need to protect. Protection equals hiding, right? Hiding from the things that are uncomfortable, that are threatening. Hiding equals living small, right? When we hide, we live small. We literally like get smaller. Our surface area gets smaller. We try not to be seen, right? We try to remain safe. And living small equals dying, right? Because if we're not living, if we're not growing, if we're not expanding, if we're not out there having experiences, then we're dying. Whether that means we're dying physically or mentally or emotionally or spiritually, right? We can die a spiritual death long before we die a physical death. So living small equals dying. So I just wrote those things, right? Just to get clarity for myself. Money equals shame, equals not enough, equals scarcity, equals fear, equals not okay, equals protection, equals hiding, equals living small, equals dying. All right. Then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't think I have anything else to write there. I think I've said what I want to say. And then so I went kind of back to the top, and I was like, okay, what are these things that are bothering me, right? I've got this road trip coming up. I'm going to be going to the men's retreat in North Carolina, which is coming up mid-October. I have the men's retreat itself, right? That's on my brain. Then there's the January men's retreat in Mexico. There's an April men's retreat in Texas. I've set up this little YouTube studio so I can make more videos. That's something that I've done for myself because I wanted to be able to do that, and I wanted the videos to be a certain quality. And then I wrote down, that I mentioned earlier about being stuck in neutral. Am I stuck? What's going on? Where is my energy and focus these days? What's going on? And then is there a combination of all of these things, right? So here's the details real quick of what I wrote down here, and I won't go too much into each one of these, but just to say that what I was really doing here is brain dumping the details of each one of these things, so I could get clarity on what it is that I needed to, what could I act on right now, what could I let go of, knowing that I've got it taken care of, I've got it scheduled, and what pieces do I need to make sure that I don't let fall through the cracks, so that I can take my hamster off the wheel. I can know that everything's taken care of, and I can just enjoy the ride. So for the road trip, I want to do things like resurface the roof of the RV. I've got some sealant that I want to roll on with just like a paint roller, and I just want to make sure that the RV is sealed and weather protected, so that so we'll be able to heat and cool the thing without having to work too hard. And that I've scheduled for this Saturday, so I know it'll be taken care of. And I scheduled it for this Saturday so that for the rest of the week I could focus my attention on the things that I really want to do, like create videos and respond to the community and coach men without having myself be distracted by something that's going to take my time and attention to do. So I put that on the calendar. It's scheduled, it's done. I can take my hamster off the wheel. Then I need to plan the trip, right? So what are the stops that we're going to have? We're going to go to a zoo. We're going to see a giraffe with no spots. We're going to go to a movie set where they filmed a movie that we like. We're going to go to the men's retreat in North Carolina, and then maybe visit some national or state parks, and then maybe even go so far as to go to the ocean, on the East Coast. So those are the things that I wrote down, which means I need to come up with a route. I need to make sure that I've decided on the departure date, and if there's any reservations or anything that need to be made, then those need to be made. I need to pack the RV, keep it simple, breathe, have fun, and then mid-October, October 18th or so, 18th, 19th, that's when I'll be landing in North Carolina for the men's retreat. So those are the things that I just wanted to remind myself, right? And you see in there, I even reminded myself to breathe. I reminded myself to have fun, right? I wanted to call those things out specifically because it shouldn't just be a to-do list. It shouldn't just be things that I'm afraid of missing. It should be things that I'm like, I want to breathe and have fun and go slow. Because, even when I said, what do I want? Right? I said, I want to live simply. I want to enjoy every moment. I want to go slow. And so, I can't just say those words. I have to live them. And so I put that down. And then for the October men's retreat, I wanted to make sure that I remind myself, okay, what is the topic, right? We're going to be covering necessary endings at the retreat, which means the guys will want them to have read the book before they come. We're about 4 weeks out from the retreat, so this is a perfect time to email guys and say, hey, here's the book that we want you to read. Take notes of anything that stands out for you. Oh, by the way, here's a questionnaire that we want you to fill out in advance of the retreat so that you'll be prepared to have these conversations. And so here's your reading assignment, right? And then for myself and the other coaches, make sure that we have our rough agenda, which we've done these retreats many, many times, so we already know how these things flow. But just for myself, right, as a prepared person, as somebody who wants to give more use value to a man than I receive in cash value, I want to make sure that I have everything, everything's been thought through. And so same thing for the January retreat, same thing through the April retreat, right? Same flow. And then as far as making videos, I want to make one video per day. This is my new, after doing 75 hard, this is my new standard for myself. I know that after doing 75 hard, I read 10 pages a day, I drink a gallon of water a day, I did 2 workouts a day, I stuck to a particular diet, healthy diet for 75 days. And so I'm still doing those things, and I've added in, I want to do 1 video per day, right? And that video can be over my journal notes like I'm doing here. It can be reading quote cards, things that I've read out of books, speaking into community topics and conversations. And in here I wrote, just do it. Just do it. Just turn the camera on and start talking. And that's why I'm making this video. Now this video is long. I know all these videos won't be this long, but again, rather than tell myself no, I'm just saying, turn the camera on, let's go. And the video will be as long as the video needs to be. As far as being stuck in neutral, I made statements instead of asking questions. Here I said, please yourself. Please yourself. Right? Are you stuck in neutral? Please yourself. You've been trying to please everybody else, and that hasn't produced the result that you wanted. Please yourself. Stop trying to please everybody else. Please yourself. You're a good man. You're a great man. You care. You got a big heart. Please yourself, and it's going to work out pleasing everybody else. Be selfish. Be selfish. Healthy selfish, of course, but be selfish. Self-care, self-love, self-worth, self-value, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-acceptance, self-appreciation. Be selfish. Let everyone else be responsible for themselves. Let everybody else be responsible for themselves. Stop caretaking everyone around you. It's okay. In fact, that's the way that you can honor them the most, because like I said in the very beginning of this video, they have their own life. It's theirs to live, and they need to work it out for themselves. You can be there, you can listen, you can be supportive, you can love them, and you can give them the space to let them work things out for themselves. Let them be responsible for themselves. And then in terms of combo, right, a combination of factors, when we have a cognitive load, right, cognitive load, we got all this stuff on our mind, it's distracting from our joy. It is totally distracting from our joy. We're born with joy, and it gets covered up with all of this other mental noise. And then I wrote, fuck that. Fuck that. If you haven't seen the meditation video on YouTube, fuck that. I will link it in the description below. So that was my revelation there, right? Fuck that. I do not want to do that. And then I specifically went through and wrote out all the things that I want to do for self-care. But I'll save that for another video, just so I can talk a little more about that without worrying about this video already being 37.5 minutes long. So that's what I got to say there. Those are my thoughts, my journal thoughts. There was a lot of insights in there, a lot of self-acceptance in there, a lot of letting it be okay that I had competing thoughts, that I had questions that were uncomfortable, that there were things in there that would seem like if someone else read my journal, specifically my wife or my kids, or they might be like, oh, he's talking about me, and I don't know that I like that. I don't know how I feel about this, right? So we have to be able to be honest with ourselves so that we can process these things through and let the clarity that we need surface. And that means that sometimes we're going to journal things that might be uncomfortable for someone else to read. But the journal's not for them to read. It's for us to get to know ourselves better. So there's my thoughts. There's my journal entry for today. I have a bunch of other journal entries if you'd like to hear about those, hopefully in a shorter form. Let me know, and I'll be happy to make videos about those as well. All right, have a great day. Go out there and kick some ass. You're wonderful. I love you. Talk to you soon.